The culture currency show is for those who recognize that nuance is key. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but we tackle the issues that affect the majority when speaking of Black America. Our discussions are informed by the host's personal experiences and insights, and we're always open to evolving our perspective as we gain new understanding.
This is the story of two friends from the Bronx who decided to get real, be direct, and impact Black culture. Welcome to Culture Currency, where culture is the value.
Peace.
Peace.
How you doing?
You doing today? I'm good.
I'm good too.
That's
Can't
good.
complain.
That's good.
Can't
Life is
complain.
good.
Energized today.
That's always a plus.
All right. So today we're discussing a really serious topic going along with our theme this season, which is really about black health in all areas, right? And we have a guest today that we'll be bringing on.
And what's today's topic?
And today's topic is Black maternal mortality.
It's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. So how you want to kick it off, though, before we bring on our guest?
I just want to discuss any personal experiences we've had with healthcare system that showed a lack of intention when it comes to our Black bodies.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we're always part of experiments, the same way how they do with rats and all of that kind of stuff. Like we are part of the experiment. And one of the things that we were thinking about in the question that you brought up, I'm like, oh, that's a good thing to think about is our own experiences. So when I was diagnosed with lymphoma, I was recommended to take radiation and chemo. But my family urged me to get a second opinion, and I didn't even need radiation. And I just found out that if I had taken radiation, by this time, I would have breast cancer. Because patients with lymphoma who have radiation and chemo develop breast cancer. Interesting. You know what I mean? And my dad, the same thing. They gave him a year to live. A couple years ago, we got a second opinion, he's good. You know what I mean? Because we had to take him to another place. We had to get him from the South and get with quality health care. And then everybody really, they don't have those kind of advocates or resources or proper health care. So, you know, it's part of our history.
It is crazy because a large part of it is, with every conversation we have, capitalism ends up being a huge portion, right? So, these tests and these treatments, depending on the cost, they're pushing them to see what they can,
to get from
they
it.
can check off that, that box and get as much money as possible. So they're not worried about
the person,
what is happening to you. They trying to get a check.
They're trying to get a check, and that's that.
I had an experience, actually, as a teen. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it didn't feel right going into birth with my daughter and not being able to see her. Like, they didn't bring her to me, so I was separated from her, and they didn't give me no real reasons why. They started feeding her formula without giving me an opportunity to breastfeed. And I'm 15 years old.
Right.
I have absolutely no idea how this works.
Right.
So I know it doesn't feel right, but I don't really know how to advocate because I don't know what's supposed to be happening. So I'm asking them, like, where's my daughter? They're like, they're saying that they're doing this and they're doing that. And then I come to find out that they were trying to put my daughter in the system.
What?
Under my nose because I was 15.
Really?
Regardless of the fact that my mother was there, regardless of the fact that she was a part of it and she was my guardian.
Right.
They still was trying to put my daughter in the system underneath my nose. And that was the experience that I had, not necessarily...
With the healthcare system.
Yeah, not necessarily by way of testing and different things like that.
Right.
But just a huge disregard of my humanity and my motherhood.
I mean, definitely in the healthcare system, there's definitely racial bias and insurance bias.
All of it.
I was doing some readings, and based on your insurance, they treat you funny, and the same way based on your race, they treat you funny. Like, not funny, horrible. and disrespectfully. That's crazy. The Tuskegee Airmen, the Syphilis Project, and what they did to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is not new.
None of this is new. It's just different renditions of the same thing, of the same old story. But today we're gonna, have this great discussion, and then hopefully have some things that we could recommend for our folks to help not be the next victim of the healthcare system.
Absolutely. I love this discussion, and I'm excited to hear what our guest has to, add to the discussion. I'm Mahagony,
I'm Ish.
and this is Culture Currency.
But culture
Is the value.
So today's guest is not just a guest. She actually, someone that I knew for a while. I actually had a great relationship with her godmother, and I'm happy that we stayed in touch via social media. She watches the show and reached out one day and say, "Hey, Ish, why don't you talk about Black mortality of deaths when it comes to the labor room?" I'm like, all right, that's a great, great topic, right? So we're gonna bring up D. Marissa of Divine Harlem. She's a birth justice advocate and doula. Thanks for coming. All right. Hey, Marissa. Thank you for being with us today. So we really don't want to lead this conversation. We're gonna have you kick it off, and then you could lead us in a direction that you would like the conversation to go in, and we'll have follow-up questions for you. Okay. So how would you like to kick off this conversation?
I think I would start with what brought me to birth work, right? Because I would say I didn't realize that this was like a traditional modality of like, or workforce modality until maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. My oldest daughter is 16, right? So similar to your story, I had my first child at 23 years old. I was actually just 30 days shy of 23. So I was 22 when I got pregnant. And my first birthing experience was super traumatic, but I didn't know that was not normal, right? So I'm going in, I'm not dilated. They start hooking me up to a bunch of stuff, and slowly but surely, they took all my autonomy away. I said, I wanted a natural labor. They're like, oh, we're going to give you medicine, because in order for them to do interventions, they needed to medicate me. And I'm grateful that I walked away, healthy and still able to have children, but I didn't realize the amount of risk that put me in. I could have never been able to have children again. It's also really young. My body was so, fragile and premature to the experience. And so by the time I had my second child, which was 2 years later, that was my son, I thought this was normal birthing practice. So I'm going in like, give me the epidural, plug me up with the, all of the things. Except this time, the mechanisms didn't work as effectively. So I spent my labor in agony with an epidural probably because I had nerve damage, who knows? And I remember, wanting a birthing center and them telling me that my insurance wouldn't cover it. And so, fast forward, I became the birthing person for like my family. Everybody wanted me in the room because I learned about the machine, still not knowing what a doula was, still not really understanding what I was doing, but feeling like I wasn't supported, so I wanted to be able to support others, and feeling like I wasn't advocated for, so wanting to be able to advocate for others. I learned more about this modality, this calling, I'd like to say. And so I want to say I met a Delta once, and she was telling me all the things that she does, and she's like, yeah, I'm a doula. I was like, what the heck is that? And she's like, well, I deliver babies. I'm like, that's so cool. So like a gynecologist, she's like, no, we don't work in the medical industrial complex. We protect our people from the medical industrial complex. And I was like, I think that's something that I want to do. And she was like, you should. And so what happened, what I've learned historically is that, a lot of the parameters in academia around medical care, around law, are things that were put in place to keep us out of the conversation. Right? We were the first doctors. We were the first lawyers. And so it became illegal for us to do our indigenous practices. Doula care was our reclamation of that, right? We're saying that we don't need to be doctors. We don't need to be nurses, but we're still the experts. And this is something that is passed down generationally, so in my travels, I've, studied in South Africa, I've studied in Ghana, I've studied in Tanzania, I've sat at the feet of elder midwives and really learned our traditional ways of birthing. And it's not something that is book heavy. It's more spiritual. It's more intuitive. The best thing that I learned in that experience is that postpartum, young people are the ones who care for the birthing mothers. Young people who are prepubescent at that. So we're talking about kids who are 8 or 9, 10 years old. And when I think about American culture, that's when our kids start wanting to play with the babies, and I want to be the leader of the babies. And unfortunately, because we've been stripped so far away from our culture, we think, oh my gosh, she likes babies. Oh, she's about to be pregnant in a few, so we gonna keep her. When really, this is her intuition saying, this is the work that I'm called to do. So, I'm grateful to have discovered this. It has definitely changed my life. I love being in the advocacy space. I love doing international exchanges with people because there's still a Medi-Cal imprint on this in the States. There is this certifying body, although you can practice without certification, there's still this certifying body. It's become mainstream. The mayor and everybody is funding it, right? But it still aids and abets the medical industrial complex, right? And the stats are clear. So women of color, especially Black women, are 2 to 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than their counterparts. That is not a biological thing, right? It's clear that a certain demographic is being targeted. It's clear that it's structural. And it's interesting that women don't necessarily die while in childbirth. They usually die postpartum.
I was reading something and it said pregnancy is essentially a stress test on a woman's future health. And then a woman who has complications during labor more likely will have cardiovascular issues later. So they need immediate postpartum help, right? And then if they have federal or state insurance, they need extended help for the rest of their lives. So then we get into what Mahagony brought up earlier was not having the right insurance, so you can't get that assistance. But it's not really just a labor room; it's after that of not receiving the proper care. And I didn't know about that. Yeah. So can you just tell us what are some of those complications that come up, and how can we be preventative when it comes to that?
Before we even get into the meat and potatoes of pregnancy, we're talking about the conditions by way of structural violence that most Black women, frequent every day. So those are risk factors in of itself, right? We have housing insecurities, food insecurities, poverty, familial breakdown, lack of support, right? And so then you're going in this thing probably with already really high cortisol levels. Then you have the stress of pregnancy on your body, because pregnancy, the old school saying is when you're pregnant, you got 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot out, right? Because your body essentially is doing everything it can to protect this baby. And it will extract from you whatever it needs to protect this baby, right? So if you already are eating poorly, if you're already, not sleeping well, right, all of those things, your body is depleting what's already depleted, which is going to have an effect on how your organs function, more specifically your heart. And so then we're leading into the birthing space where interventions are Pitocin. C-section is an intervention. Balloons are interventions. Epidurals are interventions. And what happens is the more interventions that are incited into your labor, the least likely you are to have a vaginal birth, a healthy vaginal birth, but also the higher your risk of postpartum hemorrhaging. Now, this is how the medical industrial complex works. And this is something that you brought up about the money aspect of it, right? So the hospital is a revolving door. The goal is to get as many women in this birthing room as possible. Each woman that delivers vaginally, I think the labor costs upwards of $10,000 to $15,000. Each woman that delivers by way of C-section is $30,000. Now, if you come in and you're 0 centimeters dilated, and I want to say this, it's very important to say this, your body is designed to labor. We were forever going in the backyards and delivering our babies. We didn't have an estimated due date. You didn't know how many weeks you were. You knew you were pregnant, and then one day the baby came. Your grandma look at you and say, I think in about a week that baby is about to come. Or, you getting ready to go in today. Let's get prepared. You stay home, close to home. Once the medical intervention started to occur, the hospital figured out a way to mass-produce delivery, right? So I'm going to give you Pitocin, which are synthetic contractions, which means then I give you an epidural. So 2 things, right? 2 medications that I'm going to charge you thousands of dollars for, 2 professionals that I have to pay now because they're intervening in your labor, but it jumpstarts your body into this now non-natural process. But the earlier I expose you to those things, the more likely you are to hemorrhage because I'm overacting your uterus. So many women lose their uterus after having a baby because it's overactive, and then you start hemorrhaging, bleeding beyond control. And at that point, the doctors, they are more of a intervention than a prevention thing. So they don't have the capacity or the skill or the technique to stop you from hemorrhaging. The other reality is I give you all these interventions, but your body is not ready to deliver. So now we're 18 hours in. I can't keep doing this because of the hemorrhaging, so I force you into C-section. Black women have the highest rate of C-sections. I think we have 30% of our labors end in C-section, which is disproportionate. I think like 20% higher.
They definitely was trying to get my daughter to get a C-section both times with both her children. Mm-hmm. Thank God we already had paperwork that we had put in place to make sure that she had say over what was happening with her body when she went in that hospital.
And so with my youngest son, and I'm a birth worker, but there's something that happens in labor. And just like, any other structure, they know how to wear you down, right? So I'm there, I'm 9 months pregnant, I'm tired, I want this baby out. It was actually one of these days, my son is 6 days behind me. And so they're telling me, they do a sonogram. I just had a sonogram the day before, the baby was in position. They do a sonogram, they're like, oh, your baby's breech. We have to prep you for a C-section. And I said, now there is one medical intervention where they can just twist the baby from the outside. So I asked, like, whoa, are we, no, we don't want to do that, least invasive. That's least invasive, not you cutting me.
Right,
like, what?
Crazy, right.
And so I'm like, I had 2 successful vaginal deliveries. There's no way that I'm going to consent for that. Is just not an option. But they're like, it's for the health and safety of the baby.
Yeah, they scare you into it.
Gratefully so, I had a doula. And so my doula went and got a pack of cold ice and a hot towel. She put the cold ice at the top where the baby was sitting and the warm towel on the bottom. Within an hour, my son turned and I went home. Just that simple. And so most the responsive cesareans are preventable. They don't have to happen.
You describe what your doula would do, thank you for that, is a natural intervention. Because I wanted to ask, like, okay, if you're with a doula and you're not in the hospital, then so what happens when you need epidural, when you're in that kind of pain?
That's the thing. We don't need epidural. So when your body is naturally allowed to contract, right, and this is without medical intervention, so most pregnancies end with epidural because the Pitocin has been incited. That's a synthetic contraction. When you are naturally contracting, your body knows when to stop. So you may be in labor for 2 or 3 hours and you may be getting 3 to 4 minutes in between. And then all of a sudden it'll break for like 30 minutes so you can rest because your body is designed to do this thing, right? But the hospital will say, oh, you're not dilating fast enough because they need you out so they can get the next person in. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I work with a midwife, phenomenal woman. Her name is Nubia Martin. She has a phenomenal documentary, many, journal articles about birth. She studied all over the world. She has never had to use medication at any of her births. And this woman has delivered hundreds of babies. There are women who never use medical interventions. And when you study in South Africa and you think, folks are out in the wilderness, they're not shooting you with anything. They may give you a little tea brew. There are more homeopathic precautions that you can take. Red raspberry leaf is something that you can drink. You should start that a few weeks before your due date. Pineapples give you natural it's called bromelain, which softens your cervix. That's something that you can do. Walking is always good. I don't know how, PG-13, but sex is important when you are pregnant and at those, because semen softens the cervix. Those are things. And then just natural oxytocin, being happy. Most women stall in labor because of trauma, not because of the body.
What do you mean stall because of trauma?
Yep. So labor is a spiritual practice, and women carry grief in their womb, and generationally so. So your ovaries carry your grandchildren's children, and their children, and so forth and so. Every woman in your lineage lives in your ovaries. So that means that you lived in your grandmother, great. So we're talking about all of the things that we've experienced, all of the, you know, slavery, the structural stressors, all of those things, whatever harm your mother has gone through, you have experienced in her body. Whatever chemical changes have happened to her have happened to you. And so those things live. And then you have your own life experience. Those things live in your womb. That's why some women have extended bellies. It's why we have the highest rates of stomach cancer and severe cervical cancer. And so when we find ourselves in the process of pregnancy, what a doula would do with you is go through any traumatic events that you haven't had time to process so that you can release those things to clear the way for your birth to happen. I met a woman who was in labor and her mom was in the room and her mother was like pinned to the wall. And she's like, what is wrong? She's like, you're having the same exact labor that I had when I was having you. It was a beautiful labor. She wasn't in pain. We got to 9 point and then she just stopped. Oftentimes too, women stop because the fear of what their parenting is going to be like comes up. You know, like, oh my God, am I ready for this? Like, am I good enough to have this? Can I take care of this baby? And so, you know, we would ask as a doula, like, what's coming up for you? Or we would affirm, you're doing a phenomenal job. You were made for this. Wait till you see a beautiful baby. And before you know it, babies pop out. And then the one that we don't like to talk about most is sexual trauma. A lot of women, especially women of color, have sexual trauma. And so just the activation of, you know, that chakra can just bring up that trauma. You'll notice people don't want to be touched. So what I do in those times is I'll encourage the family to touch, or I'll encourage the partner to touch. And I am very specific about advocating that doctors do not touch or announce before they do touch, be very clear about what they're going to do so that we can process that in a way that's not exploitive, but also acknowledges that this person has been through some sort of harm.
You are very informative. Yes, very clear. That's why I'm just sitting here listening. I'm not asking a lot because you are giving me everything that's coming to mind. How does someone go about getting a doula? Because I remember my daughter saying like she wanted one before we came up with the birth plan. It was like, I would like to have a doula, but financially that wasn't, she wasn't capable at the time. So what does that look like for someone?
So I'm a Black girl from Harlem. So when I took on this work more professionally and I established my company, my goal was to service families who were underserved. So I'm a Medicaid doula. Most of my clients are Medicaid. I also don't think that financial, issues is a reason to not get care. It is your birthright to have birth workers in the room to support you. This is our indigenous way of doing things. So for me, I work with clients with Medicaid. I work with clients who don't have money. Most times than not, when I've supported in births, I was not paid financially. I feel like I'm paid spiritually. I'm very abundant in that way. And you'll find birth workers who are true to this and will do that. Again, my friend and comrade Nubia Martin, she has Birth from the Earth. They're in Mount Vernon. They have a birth fund for families who are not able to afford birth workers, and they do home births for those families. So you don't, because there is this elitist attitude around birth work, and I'm here to like break that structural barrier. So you can find doulas that are medically certified. There are other organizations. Ancient Song is another one that takes clients no matter their financial background. But again, I'm here. I'm in Harlem, but I also service all 5 boroughs. Always look up Divine Harlem. We don't turn people away, especially not for financial reasons.
That's good to know. Thank you for your service too. You've explained how you are pretty much navigating the gap between the financial gap, I should say. Could you give our audience a little understanding of what it actually costs for a natural birth versus, you know, what they're used to in the medical field?
Like with doulas?
Yes.
The birthing process doesn't start in the labor room, right? I actually don't really like to work with clients who I'm just meeting who are going into labor because, like I said, trauma comes up. So many things come up. And if you don't have a rapport with someone, you're in a room full of strangers. When I delivered my son, my family wasn't there. No one was there. It was just me and these strange people. And unfortunately, when you have public health insurance, you don't get a primary gynecologist. You see them on a rotating schedule. So every time you go to the doctor, you get a new person.
So now I understand why it was very specific, and something I was reading said that the woman should be assigned a primary care person in postpartum. It's not just someone specifically for you, but other than that, it can be rotating. Yes. Wow.
I want to give a story about a woman who is incarcerated currently. She suffered from mental illness. Her original gynecologist had been her gynecologist from when she was a child, but she aged out. And so they were aware of her mental illness. And so they figured out a regimen where she could be medicated directly after having her baby to be able to take care for children and have a good quality of life. She had her second child, and she was in this medical industrial complex. So she was seeing rotating doctors. Of course, when she first found out she was pregnant, they told her stop taking her medication. So she's going untreated. She has her baby. No one puts her back on her medicine, and she throws her children out of the window because she was having a psychiatric episode.
That's crazy.
And they incarcerated her for that.
Oh, shit. Wow.
And so whose fault is it, right? Yeah. She has a documented psychiatric issue. She's proven to have been able to take care of a child because she had an older child that she took care of with no issue.
And she was taking her medication that she was
because the medical industrial complex failed her. She is now spending time in prison. And it was publicly talked about. It was all over the news, and never once did they mention that this woman had a psychological issue.
So she was demonized, but still in all with folks having the real story now. She doesn't have advocates to help her fight the case.
Unfortunately, the punishment system is what it is. And so once you're in, it's very hard to advocate. Better off advocating before you go than while you're in the system. And so, she had to go through the same penal process that everyone else goes through.
Wow. So we kind of went off, but I still want to bring it back to the course, just because I want our audience to have an understanding of what that looks like, if that is an area that they would like to kind of discover.
Yep. For viability, there's a scale. Some doulas charge anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000, depending on the amount of prenatal and postpartum interactions they have with the client, and then the birthing. The birth is usually around $800 to $1,000 of that fee. You could pay as you go. So some doulas will say, give me $50 a visit. Some doulas will say, pay half up front. When we get to labor, you pay the other half. But if you are on a Medicaid recipient, Medicaid, I think, only pays $2,500.
I like the flexibility that comes with it, because it can be scary. It's like majority of people, when they go into birth, they're going into birth with some type of medical coverage. So they're not feeling the financial burden, right? So when you start saying, okay, now I have to actually spend money from the bank, that changes things. Right. It's good that that flexibility is there, and you can kind of navigate budgeting it, how that's going to work.
Yep. So I'm just thinking, like, when we have these like extravagant reveals, gender reveals and stuff, ask for some funds instead of, or a gift card where you can use it anywhere, or everyone donate to help you get a doula.
That's dope. Yeah. That's a dope idea. Right.
I've seen people do birth funds at their gender reveals or even at their baby showers. I've seen that. I've also, like I said, I've seen doulas say, what do you have? The other thing is, when you go through Medicaid, you're only allotted a certain number of visits. I think it's like maybe 5 prenatal, and then you might get like 5 postpartum, which is nowhere near enough. So I've seen people utilize their insurance to the max of what it offers and then pay the rest, which I would suggest for everyone, And there are some private insurance plans that do pay for doula care as well. And so that's the other thing that we have to start doing. We should call our insurance company and say, like, hey, I would like to know what my coverage is around this thing. Because you have the option to switch. And I think we also have to start family planning. A study came out last year. There were 300 million babies born. 50% of them were white, 50% were everyone else.
Really?
Yes.
I just read something that said that they stopped having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, people are misreading the data, right? So we have this whole demographic of people accounting for 50% of those births, and then we're clumping everyone else and then saying people of color are having babies, but that includes Asian population, Black, Latino, and we're in betweens. So we're also just not having babies, which is not good. But because of societal factors, people are choosing not to have children. Beyond birth work, beyond food insecurities and all the things, we need to be doing more work to rebuild our community and then our families.
Well, that is what culture currency is all about,
that's
right? Getting us back to health so that we can start operating the way nature said that we were supposed to, right?
So how does the doula thing work? Is it like a once a week check-in, a bi-weekly check-in? Like, what does it look like?
So your birthing plan is the first thing that you do when you meet with a doula. And so the amount of visits that you need, it depends on your circumstances. You know, if you're pretty healthy, your first baby, you know, the first few months, you may only see a doula once a month. And that's also depending on your layers of support, right? So if I had a client who has their parents, has a partner who they can trust, has a strong like safety net, I probably would see them once a month in the beginning. When they get in their second trimester, I might see them twice a month. And then at the end, we would check in every week. I try to do at least one monthly prenatal visit with them for support. This is where we start advocating, right? So our first visit, we've talked through your birthing plan. I know that like it's the Bible. So when we go in, I'm reminding your doctor, hey, this person wants to encapsulate their placenta. Can you make sure that's documented? This person wants a non-medical birth. Can we make sure that's documented? So that when we get to the labor and delivery room, we don't have much advocating to do. All of those things have been documented, say, well before we got here. And I'm teaching you how to advocate as well. So when we get there, you're educated on all the things. If it's someone who has pre-existing medical conditions, so someone who's diabetic or maybe hypertensive, I would probably see them twice a month in the beginning. If gestational diabetes comes up or hypertension comes up, I would see them every week. And with that, I'm cooking meals for you. I'm educating you on nutritional things to do, herbs and things to take. I'm probably taking walks with you and definitely honing in on whatever stresses are in your life so that we can decrease the outcomes of those things.
I'm about to have a baby so I can be camping.
Listen,
great.
in African tradition, when you have a baby, all of the women in your family come stay with you for 6 months. Yes. And when you first have your baby, you don't care for the baby for the first 3 months. Your mom, your grandma, they literally sit at the door and you rest. You are fed all of the things. There's soups and broths and all the things that you get to replenish your body so that you can be fit.
That makes all the sense in the world. Makes all the sense in the world because that postpartum depression, man, that ain't no joke.
And the 40 weeks of just like bringing a whole life inside of your body, you need some recovery time. Yeah, that's amazing. I just want to say thank you for joining us and being so clear, informative.
Word. Took over the show.
Right? It took over the show. So
in a good way,
Excellent way, right? So shout out DeMarissa from of Divine Harlem. Definitely got to find a way to integrate her in the different things we're doing. You know, our guests have been pretty good.
Yeah, we've had some great guests.
Ones, so thank you for being one of the greatest ones. We appreciate you.
I would feel remiss if I didn't say, we also have to stop excluding partners, our men or whoever our partners are from the birthing space, because we cannot have children without both people, right? I don't know where we went wrong with excluding men more specifically out of the conversation, but then we hold them accountable when they are not integrated into the family. And so in the same way that women need prenatal care, men need prenatal care. In the same way that we want to hear your fears and your anxieties around birthing for a mom, we need to hear that from dads too. We have to create space for them to process that so that they can come into this whole and actualized and ready. And I have to say that because that's a huge part of the familial breakdown. We also got to start talking across genders and across experiences and all the intersectionalities if we're trying to build whole families. And so that's a part of birth work, is building the whole family. And so I just want to say that last.
So I'm happy you said that, because we just had a conversation. We just had a conversation about a show we would like to do, because I found, I don't remember the name of it, but men also have menopause. It's just called something different, and it's not something that everyone knows. And then a lot of men don't know it. So they go through these changes and they're wondering why they're feeling different. Their masculinity is connected to a specific actions. And then those actions are no longer there. They don't feel like the man that they once felt like. And so we were saying that we needed to have these discussions, because we really want to make sure that we're taking care of the whole family. Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
Men experience postpartum. They experience, everyone does. Postpartum just means after the baby's born. Everyone is having an experience. The children are having a postpartum. If you have children prior, they're having a postpartum experience as well, you know? So we want to incorporate all of those things, and we need to hear more of what those things mean. Also, men experience sexual trauma, and having children brings those things up as well. So we want to talk through that. You know, their DNA has been traumatized by those things as well. This has been passed down to the child. So we want to see how those things come up. But if we never create space to have the conversation, then we can't even crack the surface of it.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Come on, healthier Black communities. Let's do it. Yes.
I'm Mahagony,
I'm Ish.
and this is Culture Currency.
What culture?
Is the value.
Make sure to like, share.
Subscribe and comment.
Yep.